The Night's Watch is one of the oldest orders in the Seven Kingdoms, as it survived the fall of the kingdoms of the First Men, the Andal invasion, and Aegon's conquest. It was founded over 8,000 years ago, at the end of the Long Night. Under cover of an endless night that lasted for a generation, the others invaded from the lands of Always Winter, laying waste to much of Westeros, but were finally defeated by the Night's Watch at the Battle for the Dawn. Vol was allegedly built by Bran the Builder in order to protect the Seven Kingdoms, with the Brothers of the Night's Watch choosing their own Lord Commander since that time. During the Age of Heroes, it was also recorded that the Children of the Forest gave the Night's Watch 100 obsidian daggers every year. Other than the corrupting of the 13th Lord Commander, the Night's King, further attacks by the others never came, however. Instead, the most frequent attacks came from the Wildlings, sometimes led by their kings beyond the wall, and their constant attempts at raiding in the north. The Night's Watch built 19 castles along the 100 leagues of the wall, although they have never manned more than 17 at one time, with over 10,000 men-at-arms between them. Back then, Castle Black alone quartered 5,000 fighting men, with all their horses, servants, and equipment. The Highborn of the North have traditionally considered it an honor to serve on the wall. Many younger sons of northern houses, low in the line of succession, gladly took the black. Shields of nobles from the 100 kingdoms of Westeros were proudly displayed in the Shield Hall at Castle Black. The castles themselves are closer to garrisons, composed mostly of barracks, stables, storehouses, towers, and outbuildings, as they have no walls of their own. They were purposefully built this way so the Watch could man only the wall itself and focus on threats from the north. The Night's Watch feared no attack from the south because of their vow not to take part in the wars of the Seven Kingdoms, though some assumed that Night's Watch was forbidden to build walls around their castles after the fall of the Night's King, the corrupted 13th Lord Commander. Little by little, the Night's Watch forgot that its main mission was not the fight against the Wildlings, but against the others. Through time, the manpower of the Night's Watch has decreased more and more, with most of Westeros neglecting the wall, till only 3 of the 19 castles remain garrisoned. Only the north, mainly the Starks, have the memory of the old days, but even they believe the others are no more than vague figures in stories told to frighten children. Westwatch by the Bridge is the westernmost castle of the Night's Watch, located near the Gorge and the Bridge of Skulls. The Gorge is a large, deep gorge that separates the wall from the Bay of Ice. Wildlings descend into it to bypass the wall. The Bridge of Skulls is a bridge which traverses the gorge. It is a dangerous route named for the bones in the gorge below. The Shadow Tower is one of 3 castles along the wall that are still inhabited by the Night's Watch. It is located next to mountains at the western end of the wall. The Shadow Tower is commanded by Sir Dennis Mallister, who has commanded it for 33 years. He has 200 men of the Watch under his command. Dennis was born at Seaguard as a member of House Mallister. He was a squire at 12, a knight at 18, and a champion at 22 years old. He once unhorsed both of Samwell Tarly's grandfathers at the same tourney. He was a candidate in the 2 last elections of Lords Commander of the Night's Watch. Mance Raider, King Beyond the Wall, was once a brother of the Night's Watch, a ranger of Shadow Tower. Mance's parents were a common woman of the Free Folk and a man of the Night's Watch. After a group of raiders were put to the sword when Mance was a child, he was taken by the Night's Watch and raised as one of them. When Lord Commander Corgyle, the one before G.R. Mormont, traveled to Winterfell to meet with Lord Eddard Stark, Mance rode escort and met the young Robb Stark and Jon Snow. Once, while ranging beyond the wall, Mance was attacked by a shadow cat and was healed by a wildling woman. While he recuperated, she mended his torn cloak with swatches of red fabric. Upon returning to the wall, Sir Dennis Mallister required Mance to replace his mended cloak with one of uniform black. This infringement of freedom caused Mance to abandon the Shadow Tower and live with the Free Folk in the way he wished. Mance spent years gathering various tribes into one host, seeking support from clan mothers and Magnars. Opposed by 5 other would-be kings beyond the wall, Mance gained the support of 2 and slew the 3 rivals who refused to submit. The Nightfort is one of the abandoned castles of the Night's Watch along the wall, the only one whose steps up the side of the wall were carved into the ice. According to maesters who served at the Nightfort, the castle was rebuilt many times over thousands of years, with only deep stone vaults remaining from its first form. The abandoned Nightfort has broken towers and a maze of tunnels connecting its vaults. Its yards have become small forests. A twisted weirwood grows through a hole in the kitchen, and there are also trees growing in the stables. walls. The gate through the wall is sealed with frozen stone and rubble. Buildings include a bell tower, a rookery, a brewhouse, a library, a dungeon capable of holding 500 prisoners, a bathhouse, an armory, and a forge. The rat-filled Great Hall only has one remaining wall. The kitchen is a stone octagon with a domed roof and contains a stepped well. There, set deep in the wall of the well, at the center of the kitchens is hidden a magical black gate that allows passage to the other side of the wall and is as old as the wall itself. It is made of white weirwood with a face on it. The face is old, pale, shrunken, and wrinkled, with white eyes. The door glows. When someone approaches the black gate, the eyes open. They are white and blind, and when the door asks, "Who are you?" a man of the Night's Watch must repeat a part of his vow. "I am the watcher on the walls. I am the fire that burns against the cold, the light that brings the dawn, the horn that wakes the sleepers. I am the shield that guards the realms of men." The door will open then, saying, "Then pass." The Nightfort was the largest castle on the wall, and the oldest, being twice as old as Castle Black. Chronicles from the Nightfort describe the ancient war at Sea Dragon Point. At some point after the Long Night, the kings of Winter, House Stark of Winterfell, conquered Sea Dragon Point from the Warg King and his allies, the Children of the Forest. Warg King was a monarch and a skin changer in what is now the North after the Long Night. The Starks killed his sons, beasts, and greenseers, but took his daughters as prizes. It was in Nightfort where the Night's King reigned before his name was wiped from the memory of men. According to legend, Night's King lived during the Age of Heroes, not long after the wall was complete. He was a fearless warrior named the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Later, he fell in love with a woman with skin as white as the moon and eyes like blue stars. He chased her and loved her, though her skin was cold as ice, and when he gave his seed to her, he gave his soul as well. Night's King brought her back to the Nightfort, and after the unholy union he declared himself king and her his queen, and ruled the Nightfort as his own castle for 13 years. During the dark years of his reign, horrific atrocities were committed, of which tales are still told in the north. It was not until Brandon the Breaker, the King of Winter, and the Jarraman, the King Beyond the Wall, joined forces that Night's King was brought down and the Night's Watch freed. After his fall, when it was discovered that Night's King had been making sacrifices to the others, all records of him were destroyed and his very name was forbidden and forgotten. While on his way north, Bran Stark recalls stories told to the Stark children of Night's King and the Nightfort by Old Nan. She said some people believed the Night's King was a Bolton, a Magnar of Skagos, an Umber, a Flint, a Nori, or a Woodfoot. However, she identifies Night's King as a Stark of Winterfell and brother to the head of House Stark, the King of Winter, and suggests his name was Brandon. According to another legend, the man who would later be known as the Rat Cook was a simple cook at the Nightfort. He became infamous when he served an Andal king, identified either as King Tywall II of the Rock or King Oswald I of the Vale. Unknown to the king's son. The cook killed the prince in revenge for a wrong the king supposedly did to him. The king was unaware of this, however, as he ate and praised the taste and asked for a second piece. The gods were angered, not because the cook had committed murder, not because he had made the king a cannibal, but because the cook had slain a guest beneath his roof. They cursed the cook and transformed him into a massive rat, who was doomed to be unable to eat anything but his own young. According to the story, the rat cook is an enormous white rat who still lives in the Nightfort today, and all the other rats that inhabit the Nightfort are his descendants. Another story that took place in the Nightfort is the story of the 79 Sentinels. 79 deserters of the Night's Watch abandoned their posts at the Nightfort and went south, becoming outlaws. One was the youngest son of Lord Rizval. When the deserters reached the lands of House Rizval, they sought shelter with Lord Rizval, but instead they were captured and returned to the Wall. As punishment, holes were cut into the wall and each of the deserters were placed in their own hole, with spears and horns. The holes were then sealed up with the man inside. Later, when he was dying, Lord Rizval had himself carried to the Wall to take the black so he could stand by his son that he had condemned to certain death. The story of brave girl Dany Flint is reflected in a song. The song is sad and pretty, but what happened to her was not. Dany Flint was a girl from House Flint who dressed up as a boy to become a member of the Night's Watch. Dany was raped and murdered at the Nightfort, and some say her ghost still walks there. Nightfort was the place where King Shareth, an ancient king who, while at the Nightfort, called a curse down on the Andals of old, and the place where apprentice boys faced the thing that came in the night. But afterward, when they told their Lord Commander about it, every description had been different. 3 of them died within the year, and the 4th went mad. And 100 years later, when the thing had come again, the apprentice boys were seen shambling along behind it, all in chains. Simeon Stareyes once visited the Nightfort, where he saw hellhounds fighting. According to legend, Simeon was a knight who lost both of his eyes. He replaced them by putting star sapphires in the empty sockets, or so the singers claim. He fought with a long staff with blades at both ends, and would spin it in his hands to chop down 2 men at once. Then the other story tells of a Mad Axe, a member of the Night's Watch. According to the story, he took his boots off and prowled the halls of the Nightfort silently at night, and murdered his brothers. Story of Arson Isaacs tells of a wildling raider who attempted to cross the wall by digging through its base. When he was midway under the ice, he was discovered by a patrol from the Nightfort. Instead of trying to stop the wildling, they decided to wall him in alive. The legend says that by listening the ear against the wall, one can still hear the sound of Arson's axe digging away at the ice. Since this time, the Night's Watch sends infrequent patrols along the base of the wall on its northern face to look for traces of excavation. With the dwindling of the Night's Watch's power 2 centuries ago, Nightfort became 3/4 empty and too costly to maintain. When good Queen Alysanne Targaryen suggested she pay for a new, smaller castle, the Watch agreed to abandon it. The new castle, Deep Lake, was paid for by the Queen's jewels and built by a man that King Jaehaerys I Targaryen sent north. Once this new castle was completed, the Nightfort was abandoned, the first of the Night's Watch castles to be closed. Castle Black is an ancient stronghold and is the headquarters of the Night's Watch. The castle once held over 5,000 men, but it now currently holds about 600 brothers. It consists of several stone towers and timber keeps. Beneath the keeps and towers there is a series of subterranean passages called wormwalks, which connect all of the buildings. They are rarely used during the summer, but in the winter it is the only way to travel to different parts of the castle. Castle Black has a small sept, but no godswood. Men who follow the old gods can travel half a league beyond the wall into the haunted forest, where a small grove contains a rough circle of 9 weirwood heart trees. The Lord Commander's Tower, also called Lord Commander's Keep, is where the Lord Commander's quarters are located. The King's Tower is a 100-foot tall round tower with merlons atop it, overlooking the gate and the foot of the wooden stair leading up the wall. The entry door is made of oak studded with iron. Although it is reserved for honored guests and named for kings, no king has visited the tower in over 100 years. Hardin's Tower has a broken battlement from which stone has spilled into the yard below. It has a severe lean. The Lance is the tallest tower at the castle, though only a third of the height of the wall. It is slim and crumbling. The Tower of Guards is the strongest of the towers, and then there is a silent tower. The Common Hall is a great timbered keep where the brothers take their meals. The Rookery is the nesting place of Castle Black's ravens. Consequently, the Maester's quarters are located in a stout wooden keep beneath it. The Armory is where the equipment for weapons practice is kept. The Old Flint Barracks is where most of the brothers reside. The vaults located underground contain food stores and the library. The library contains records and old books that even the Citadel does not have. Amongst other topics, it covers drawings of the faces in the weirwoods, the language of the children of the forest, and scrolls from Valyria. The Shield Hall is a feast hall of dark stone. In years past, when the Night's Watch was much larger in number, the Shield Hall's walls had been hung with rows of brightly colored wooden shields. When a knight took the black, his shield would adorn its wall, and he would take up the plain black shield of the Brotherhood. When a knight died, his shield was removed, so it could go to the deceased's pyre or tomb. As the Night's Watch declined in number, however, the noble brothers dined instead with the small folk in the Common Hall. The Dark Shield Hall was used infrequently, as it was difficult to heat. It was infested with rats and had worm-eaten wooden rafters. The Grey Keep is another building at Castle Black. The gate guards the tunnel through the wall, which is long, twisting and narrow. 3 iron gates block the inner passage. Each of these gates is locked and has a murder hall above it. The outer door to the tunnel is solid oak, about 9 inches thick. The Great Switchback Stair climbs its way up from Castle Black to the top of the wall. It is made of wooden stairs anchored by huge beams frozen into the wall itself. A winch elevator is used to take supplies and men up to the top of the wall. It is an iron cage attached to a winch to allow it to ascend and descend the face of the wall. It can hold 10 men or an equal amount of supplies. Facilities on top of the wall include a small warming shed for the man on watch, located next to the crane. Beside the eastern road from Castle Black is a lichyard with the graves of some members of the Night's Watch. Beside the lichyard are ancient tombs. Eastwatch by the Sea is located on a grey windswept shore by the Bay of Seals. Near Eastwatch live some fisherfolk, and some wildlings trade with the Night's Watch at Eastwatch. Wildlings prefer it to Castle Black because trading ships from the fabled lands beyond the sea visit it from time to time. The commander of Eastwatch is Cutter Pike, who has less than 200 men under his command. Cutter is the bastard son of a tavern wench from the Iron Islands. According to Sir Dennis Mallister, Cutter has been violent since his childhood. He is a veteran of many battles, and when Stannis Baratheon lands his men at Eastwatch, Cutter leads him and his men along hidden paths which allow Stannis to take the wildlings unaware during the Battle of Castle Black. The Night's Watch keeps several galleys at Eastwatch, including larger vessels capable of crossing the narrow sea and lean fighting vessels. The galleys patrol the Bay of Seals to catch smugglers who trade weapons to the wildlings. The Gift is a tract of land measuring 25 leagues southward from the Wall that the Night's Watch received from King Brandon Stark of the North, also called the Brandon's Gift. For years the Watch farmed the Gift, but as their numbers dwindled, there were fewer hands to plow the fields, tend the bees and plant the orchards, so the Wild reclaimed much of the area. Wishing to restore the Night's Watch and reward its loyal service in the defense of the realm, Queen Alysanne Targaryen, wife of King Jaehaerys the Conciliator, doubled the extent of the Gift. Towns and villages that were located within the new Gift supported the Night's Watch with their taxes, rendered by goods and labor. In time, the new Gift lost population as people moved south, into the mountains or into the Umberlands east of the King's Road to avoid wildling raids, further reducing the support for the Night's Watch and the Wall. The nearest point of civilization to Castle Black is Molestown, a village that is bigger than it seems because 3/4 of the village lies beneath ground, in deep, damp, warm cellars connected by a warren of tunnels. There is a brothel located in the cellars with nothing more than a shack no bigger than a privy on the surface. It has a red lantern that is hung over the door. It is said that brothers of the Night's Watch go to Molestown to dig for buried treasure, which brothers enjoy mining a lot. The Night's Watch consists of 3 orders: Rangers, Builders, and Stewards. All are subject to the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and each of the 3 orders is led by its own officer. Recruiters for the Night's Watch are called Wandering Crows. The organization also includes Septons, Maesters, and Sailors. Once, serving on the Wall was honor and a sign of selfless devotion to duty, with many knights, honorable men, and nobles taking the black voluntarily. The Night's Watch is now often seen only as a way to avoid punishment, suitable less for knights than for the drags of Westeros. These men are salvaged from dungeons by Wandering Crows. Disgraced nobles, bastards, and even the unwanted legitimate offspring of nobles are encouraged to take the black, making many of today's watch a dissatisfied lot. Those who come voluntarily are free to leave during any time of their training, but no man may leave after he has said vows. Any deserters are sentenced to death. After taking the vows, the men of the watch cannot own any land, marry, or father children. Men are also encouraged to sever any ties left with their families, if they are lucky enough to have one. Thank you for the attention. See ya!